So we'll call this meeting to order of the North Middlesex Regional School District School Committee for Monday, May 2nd. And as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. Those in attendance, so we'll do roll call. We've got Dave, I don't see. Jess?
Yes.
June?
Yeah.
Lisa?
Yes.
I don't see Mike. Randy?
Yes.
Susan is not here. Tom?
Yes.
And I'm here. So that is 6 of us. So thank you. Our next scheduled meeting of the North Middlesex Regional School Committee will be held at 7 p.m. on Monday, May 16th. The first part of this meeting, for any of those watching at home, is our annual organizational meeting. And that's when we go through and re-elect our chair and vice chair for the upcoming year. We'll appoint a district secretary and treasurer, as well as 2 council positions as well. Go over some liaison appointments and talk about our meeting schedule. So we'll do that, and then that'll be followed by what'll be a normal meeting from that point on anyway. And if anybody has any questions from the committee as we go, obviously jump in. But the first order of business is, since my term has ended, we need to appoint a chairperson pro tem who will just go through the logistics until we elect another chair. So I'll need a nomination for that.
I'll nominate Craig Hansen.
I'll second.
That's a little too quick.
Sorry.
It's only pro temp. It's just very typical.
Okay, I'll take that.
It's only a few minutes, Craig.
Thank you. I think I can do it. All right. So this, any other nominations? Okay. So Jess?
Yes.
June?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Susan? Oh, sorry, Susan's not here. Tom?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. So thank you all. And I see, oops.
Craig,
Dave.
do we have to let Robin in? I see that she's
yeah.
attending.
She's only on the phone.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So she's having some technical difficulties. She has graciously declined my invitation to promote her. So I'll try again there, Robin. All right, and so Dave Carney has joined us as well. So next is just a welcome, or more of a congratulations to Ms. McNeil, Ms. Robbins, Mr. Casey on your re-election to the committee. So welcome back. Good to have you all staying on. So look forward to another 3 short years. It'll be fun. All right, elections of officers. So we have obviously 2 positions that we normally vote on. We can take them one at a time, or we can take them together. I don't have a preference, so I'll leave it up to each of you. So we have chairperson and vice chair, and I will go ahead and open nominations for one or both of those positions.
I nominate Craig Hansen for chair of the North Middlesex Regional School District School Committee.
And I will second that.
Any other nominations for chair? All right, any nominations for vice chair? Or do you want to vote on chair first?
I think typically we've always nominated and then voted, as well as we also vote for more than 2, because we do the treasurer and the secretary as well as appoint district council.
Yep.
It's not just 2 positions.
All right, so you want to vote on chair? Any other nominations? All right, we'll close that. So this is for myself as chair. So Dave?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
June?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. Nominations for vice chair.
I'll nominate June.
I will second that. Any other nominations for vice chair?
I'll
I assume-
nominate Randy, actually. How do you like that?
I will second that.
Do we have to give speeches now?
Well, now you have to. Now it's a contested race, right? Any other nominations for vice chair? Does Dave want to nominate Lisa? Lisa can nominate Jess. Jess can nominate Tom.
I'm good. I'm good.
Right. June, do you accept your nomination for vice chair?
Yes. Yeah. You'll just have to talk me through it and never be absent ever.
Piece of cake.
Okay.
I think I've missed like one meeting and it was the last one. I say that coming after being sick. So, Randy, do you accept the nomination for vice chair?
Yeah, I suppose I'll accept it.
All right. So I have not done this without a formal ballot vote. Any
Right,
suggestions?
Yeah, I don't know.
Could we all
Can
just
we send them, can we send them to Brad? Or Nancy?
Either that or we could send them to Craig as well. We should all have
Oh,
his
Craig.
text.
I don't know if I could do a poll in here. I don't see how I can do one.
Yeah, the thing is, it's supposed to be a secret ballot, so we're not
Yeah.
supposed to know what everybody else is voting until it's announced on who voted what.
Correct. Yeah, I'm fine if people want to either text or email. If you could do email, I would just prefer that from having a record perspective, but I can save my text as well if people are comfortable with that. And then we will take the majority of the 7 of us voting. So you're voting for June, for Randy, or you're abstaining from the vote for vice chair. Those are your
And this is going to
possible
you,
options. This, yeah, to me, yep, I think makes sense. All right. One, two, three. Dave. Lisa. Randy. All right. I think I've got everybody. And with a vote of 4 to 3, congratulations to June as our
Congratulations,
vice
June.
chair. Nice job.
Thank
That
you.
was a nail biter. All right. Moving on to our appointments of district treasurer and secretary. I don't know, Superintendent, if there's anything you want to say about recommending we reappoint Michael Hartman as district treasurer for the 2022-2023 school year.
I would recommend that. I'm in
All right.
favor of recommending that.
If someone would like to,
I will move that we reappoint Michael Hartnett as the district treasurer for the 2023 school year.
I will second.
thank you. Any comments or discussion? All right, Dave,
Yes.
Jess,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. So that is unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have the superintendent recommending the committee reappoint Robin Ivy as secretary to the school committee for the 2022-23 school year.
So moved.
Oh, second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments on that one? All right, Dave,
Yes.
Jess,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. So that is also unanimous. Thank you. Next is the appointment of district council for the 2022-23 school year. I believe we do these separately. So the first would be Thomas J. Nuttall from the firm Sullivan and Nuttall PC for our special education council, or for the district's special education council.
I'll move that we appoint Thomas J. Nuttall for our special education district council from the firm Sullivan and Nuttall PC.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? All right, Dave.
Yep.
Jess,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. So that is unanimous. And the last appointment for district council for the 2022-23 school year is the firm of Valerio, Dominello, and Hillman LLC for the district's labor and public education council.
So I will move that we appoint Valerio, Dominello, and Hillman LLC as district council for labor and public education for the 2022-2023 school year.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, Dave,
Yes.
Jess,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I will vote yes as well. All right. Next up is our 2022-23 school committee or subcommittee and liaison appointments. So this past year, we've had the remnants of accelerated repair in the building committee, and then we had our finance committee, negotiation personnel, policy committee, and then we had liaisons for the equity advisory, facilities, safety, technology, the select boards, and the warrant signatory or signatories. I guess first question I'll put out there, just from an accelerated repair and building committee, I'm going to presume we will leave those just as is, as those are winding down, unless anybody has any additional details or suggestions with either of those. All right. So those two aside, does anybody have any questions or comments or discussions around changing any of the subcommittees themselves, not necessarily the membership, or any of the liaison positions? And for those that were in those, I guess I'd ask if they worked. Did you find value in them? And if so, great. If not, then we should probably talk about whether or not we still need certain ones moving forward.
You know when the building committee is going to finally be dissolved?
Any day now, right? I don't know. I don't know, Brad, if we have an update on some of that closeout work that I know we're just waiting on some. You're muted, sir.
Sorry, we actually do not at this point in time. I know we're still dealing with some panel issues in the Commons, and trying to get someone to come out and take a look at it, because we do have some peeling panels. The overlay is peeling on over, I believe, over 200 of them. So we are going to have that looked at, but it could be a humidification issue that's causing that. But it comes down to really, why was there an overlay on it in the first place? Almost like a laminate, as opposed to it just being a solid piece of wood. Outside of that, I do not have an update on it as to when the closeout is planned.
Ms. Haynes, I saw you
Yeah,
pop out
I
of the
did.
darkness there.
I did have a meeting today with our OPM and the MSBA about some of the closeout numbers and working on the final pro pay. So that's all I'm reporting at this point. It's not done yet, but there was a meeting. Some parts of that got solved, and there'll be more coming.
Okay.
And as far as just the other subcommittees, I would ask the people on the negotiation and personnel subcommittee how that worked, working with all of the unions. In the past, it's been split between teachers and the other unions, so that it wasn't as much work, year round for that committee, as well as at least as far as the compensation. Usually, so go the teachers, so go the other unions. And so it's a little bit easier work, and was always used as a stepping stone to go up to the teachers, which was the larger, more difficult negotiation, just to get to common ground with them. So I just ask, how did that work for you, working with all of the unions?
Happy to let anyone else jump in on that, or I can field that. Yeah, so I mean, I would definitely say, the majority of our time was kind of dedicated towards the teacher unit. I know we had, after kind of ping-ponging through the different negotiations, talked about maybe splitting up and maybe returning to, kind of what you suggested before, Randy, as far as maybe splitting up some of the different unit work. I mean, I'm happy to do either or both again. I think you're right to an extent. The teachers unit kind of drove the finances for the others. But it seems like the other units were fairly easy to settle once the financials were kind of locked in. So I don't necessarily see a need for it, but if others feel like, there was a lot to it and maybe dividing up, I'm happy either way.
Any other comments or suggestions from folks?
I kind of was in the tail end of that committee. Things were more or less winding down when I came on, and I thought it was fine. I don't have any issues with it.
All right. June?
Dave, you were on the negotiation when it was split, or was it already one when you came on? I forget.
I don't recall. Yeah, sorry. I mean, I participated in the last two teachers' negotiations, but or the last two contract negotiations. So.
Okay. All right. It was just a question. I haven't been on it. I know I was on both of those negotiation subcommittees in the past. First came on as the other unions other than teachers, and then the teachers. So I'm just curious what the feel for the people doing it right now are.
June, were you going to say something?
Yes, not regarding that, but regarding the liaisons, I believe we also had liaison to our lunch provider. Lisa and I had a few meetings with them this year. That was another group that we had formed last year.
I think you're right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, my only comment, seeing no other ones, is just around. I know we've tried this, or we've talked about it a few times, and I know this was part of our committee goals. I'm not suggesting a formal subcommittee, but more of a formalized working group to look at communication, and I know people have heartburn with the word transparency, but I like it, so I'm going to use it. But a communication and transparency working group to just make sure that we are communicating in a way that's receptive to our audience. And I think I had some eye-opening moments mainly this budget cycle, but I think even with some of the hot topics we had this year, where, I mean, I had gone in because I have been doing this for a handful of years anyway, and just kind of know how things work. I know how the budget gets presented. I know what some of the line items mean. But the public doesn't always know that, and I had been taking some of that for granted. So I'm speaking mainly for myself, but I wanted to see if others on the committee feel that we should take a look at some of the big ticket items that we communicate out, or the big ticket asks from a community perspective, and make sure whether we do, again, some open discussions with folks, and just make sure that the information that we're putting out is being consumed in a way that makes sense to the consumer rather than making sense mainly to us. So that's a thought of mine. I don't know if others feel the same way, if that they think it's something that's needed or not. So June, I see your hand up.
I do like that idea. I think there's always areas to improve our communication, and I'm on board with that. And I would volunteer to be part of it as well.
Excellent. Jessica?
I also like that idea, and I too, if no one else wants to, I would also volunteer for that.
It's a little scary because the one part of my note that I did not read is that I would like Jessica, June, and I put Tom as well to be part of this. So thank you.
I am happy to second or third June and Jess, and I would certainly join that as well.
All right.
And I was just going to also volunteer too, but Tom, if you want it, it's all yours.
Well, I mean, I think I'm happy to have everybody involved, and we can just make this, I mean, we can have a working group go off and maybe do some tactical things and then come back, obviously, and have the full committee. I mean, the full committee needs to be part of that discussion anyway. And it may be that, again, as we formalize this, that people can go off and have conversations with their constituents, with members of the public, with other boards, whatever it happens to be, to make sure that, again, what we're putting out there is appropriate and being received that way. And even find other opportunities. We've talked about a number of things. I know resources haven't allowed some of that to come to fruition as much as we'd like, but I think it's getting to a point where we've just got to commit to it and get it done. So, any thoughts on should this be a subcommittee, which would limit us to 4 people, or have it be a working group, or strong opinions one way or another?
I mean, if it's really about like the school committee's communication, right?
Correct. Yes. So
I mean, I don't want to shut you out, Brad, or any of the other administrative team, but like if it's stuff that we have, if it's stuff that we're going to communicate out, I mean, I don't necessarily see a need to include administration, not to exclude them. You know, I know they have enough meetings anyways, so might save them a little bit.
Well, being a subcommittee doesn't mean that the administration has to be there. I was going to say I kind of like it as a subcommittee, so that we can have up to 4 members on it. You can go off and figure things out either on your own, come together, and then bring stuff to the full committee for us to look at. We can direct things at you. It's not always all right, who can show, who won't show. It's a smaller group, which I have found, at least on the subcommittees that I work on, that smaller group is better because it's a nice consistent group doing all the same work.
That makes sense. All right, so I'll pause that till we come through and appoint all these. But any other questions or comments on that or other committees or liaisons? I don't know which one that was, Don, but does he have any good ideas?
He definitely does not stop communicating, so he might be helpful.
Awesome. He signed up. All right. So if there are no objections, we'll move on to appoint the various subcommittees and liaison positions. I don't know if anybody has desires to serve on any one subcommittee versus another or liaison position.
I would like to do the warrants.
All right.
Should we just speak up, or do you want us to raise our hands so you can
Yeah,
call
no,
on
you
us?
can just speak up. I think.
Okay, I would like to do finance subcommittee and the policy again. I've been in contact with Susan today, and she would like finance if possible.
All right.
I would like to stay on policy, especially where we're talking about the regional agreement more now. And then I'd actually like to step back from equity advisory. And even though I just brought it up, the lunch group as well, I'd like to step back from, but I would like to step into the communications group. And then of course, stay on the liaison for the select board.
Excellent.
Okay, so I guess I'm next. I can stay on as the liaison for the Select Board of Townsend if you would like. I would also like to stay on the negotiation committee with Tom. And yeah, that communications committee I would also like to be a part of.
Excellent. Thank you.
To be clear, I hadn't volunteered for negotiation yet. No,
You
I'm
know
kidding.
you want to.
No, I'm kidding. I will do negotiation. That's fine.
And
I would like to stay on negotiations and the equity advisory.
All right. Lisa.
policy, finance, the warrants, and then lunch and IT liaison, if that works out.
I am calling it food service, just FYI, because I know they do breakfast too.
Okay, lunch or food service.
I guess Susan's not here and Mike's not here. Just for facilities and safety that we had Susan and Mike as those. I don't remember hearing much about those. So I don't know if we want to kind of bypass those for now, unless anyone has other knowledge.
Yeah, let's bypass them. I would say if we haven't heard anything.
Yeah. Okay. Tom or Dave, were you interested in select board for Pepperell at all? No. Okay. Figure
I
that
can
out.
do select board for Pepperell.
You want to do that?
Yep.
All right. All right, so if I capture this right, so we'll talk about the subcommittee chairs as well, but for finance, I've got Randy, Susan, and Lisa. Lisa, you're currently the chair. Between, I guess, the two of you that are here, do you have any preference on chairing that? Or Randy, you want to stay chair of policy? Make it easier?
Yes, I was going to suggest that Lisa, if she's amenable to it, to stay chair.
All right.
I will with help.
Tom, you good to stay on as negotiation with Jessica and David?
Unless Jess or Dave wants a turn.
Now, Tom, I nominate you.
Happy to.
All right, policy, Randy is chair with June, Lisa, and I'm going to put myself on policy.
Thank you for joining.
Flip-flop back and forth between finance and policy.
We're a tough group, Greg. You're
Yeah.
not, we are.
Yeah, I was going to say, Craig, if you're not going to join finance, is there anybody who wants to be a fourth on finance?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that'd be good. Do we know if Will's going to join us again?
I believe so.
He
He
wanted
did
to.
say, yeah, he wanted to.
Okay.
Can we always add members?
We can,
As we
yeah, we
go.
can add people as we go.
Okay.
We actually only had 3 this year. It was just Lisa, yourself, Randy, and I. For communication, I have June, Jessica, Tom, David. If you really want it, I will let you do that, or if not, then I'll do it. You had mentioned you had some interest, so. Is that a no? Mr. Carney? Are you there?
No.
Okay. All right. In terms of chair for communication, June, Jess, Tom, myself, anybody?
You don't want it? If you don't want it, I can do it.
If you don't mind doing it, I'd rather you chair a subcommittee than have me do it.
Unless June or Jess wants it, I will happily do that too.
You'll do it with help. All right. For liaisons, I had David for equity advisory, Lisa for food service, Lisa for technology. Select board reps would be June, Jessica, and David, and warrant signatory Lisa. We should probably have a backup Lisa on that.
Yes. I don't know if Mike wants to be the backup on it.
We can. If no one objects, we can put him down, and then if he objects, we can find someone else next time.
Okay.
Because I know I think he's the primary now, right? You guys are
Yeah,
flipping?
we're just gonna flip.
Perfect. Okay.
I'm gonna say, not attending the organizational meeting usually means you get put on things without your acceptance. It's just the way it goes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I like it. All right. Well, then in that vein, we'll leave Susan on facilities and Mike on safety, just just because. Okay. So if folks are okay with this, I'll read down the list and we can do this as one motion, unless I see any head nods objecting. All right. So for this will be, I'll take a motion to appoint a Finance Subcommittee with Lisa as chair, Randy and Susan as members. Negotiation and Personnel Subcommittee, Tom as chair, Jessica and David as members. Policy Subcommittee with Randy as chair, June, Lisa, and myself as members. The Communication Subcommittee with Tom as chair, with June, Jessica, and myself as members. Equity Advisory Liaison with David. Facilities Liaison, Susan. Food Service Liaison, Lisa. Safety Liaison, Mike. Select Board Liaisons for Ashby is June, Townsend is Jessica, Pepperell is David. Technology Liaison, Lisa. Warrant Signatory, the primary is Lisa, and the backup is Mike.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Yeah,
thank you.
Can I just make one addition is for the finance having Will Hackler as a citizen member?
Yes. Thank you. All right. Any last minute questions, comments on the appointments? Okay. So Dave,
Yes.
Jess,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. So those all pass. Thank you all for sitting through that. The next thing we had is the proposal for the 2022-23 school committee meeting schedule, which should be in the packet or in the organizational meeting folder. I know we generally look at this and say it looks fine, and we will obviously move dates around as different things come up throughout the year. But if anybody has any objections or questions on dates right now, we can certainly talk about it. Otherwise, we'll just move to accept this schedule. And again, for members of the public, these are not set in stone dates. There's always something that comes up that may require an additional meeting or require us to perhaps delay a meeting just due to specific agenda topics and the readiness of materials for that. So I'll put that caveat out there, but if folks are good, I'll take a motion.
I will move to accept the school committee calendar as is.
I'll second.
Randy and Lisa, thank you. Any questions, comments? All right. In honor of Susan, I'm going to go backwards. Tom,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Jess,
Yes.
and Dave.
Yes.
And I will vote yes. So that is unanimous. Thank you. All right. That concludes our organizational meeting. We'll move on to the regular part of our meeting and the consent agenda where we have approval of minutes, payable warrants, payroll warrants, a series of donations, and an out-of-state field trip.
Looking for a motion.
Yes, please.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Ooh. Look at that, David. All right. So Tom,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Jess,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. So that's unanimous. Thank you. I did not see any public communications that came in for this evening's meeting. So we'll move on to our, I see Randy has a hand up.
Yeah, I just want to say I have no problems doing a regular meeting attached to our organizational meeting this year, but I do want, in case everybody didn't realize it, is typically we do not do any kind of regular business. Part of it is because if we have new members, they really haven't had a chance to even come on board and understand what's going on. And then having to vote on business is quite a lot. This year, I know that there are some pressing issues that we really needed to meet for. and the fact that luckily everybody who went for re-election got the re-election, so we don't have any new members. So I have no objections to this portion of the meeting here, but just wanted to put it on record that I'd like to try and keep it to an organizational meeting for next year if possible.
Okay. I think that's a good point about new members who would have had all of a few days to get sworn in and everything. So thank you for that. Although I don't think we've, trying to remember since with COVID in the middle there, I think we've always tried to jam stuff in, which is, again, I think probably practice we should get back out of. All right, reports and information. I don't have anything more than what I've already communicated. I don't know. I think Charlie is on. So we'll have our student representative say a few words if he so desires.
Hello, can everyone
Good
hear
evening.
me?
We can. Thanks for being here.
Perfect. All right. Hello, everyone. Let's see. I'll keep this short and simple. There is a lot happening right now, though. I mean, it's AP testing season. That starts tomorrow for me, so that'll be fun. This week is a teacher appreciation week at the high school, and this morning we had a big breakfast for all the teachers. I believe we brought them all sorts of things. That was sponsored by the student council, so that's the thing they're doing right now. In a few weeks on Memorial Day for our big district-wide Memorial Day celebration, which will take place on the turf at the high school. We're working hard at that. The student council is, so that'll be great. This past weekend, we had the big school musical, which went incredibly. Got rave reviews from everyone, so that went great. And let's see, last thing, tomorrow we have a talent show at the high school sponsored by the Giving Tree. So that should be fun. I'm facing off against our history teacher, Mr. Sullivan, in a drum off. So that should be fun. Yes. Other than that, let's see. I think that's it for now. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Awesome. I see a couple of hands have gone up for you. Randy, is your hand still up from before? All right. June?
Yes, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone who had any participation in the musical this weekend, because it was unbelievable. It was just phenomenal. The talent of these kids is just, it blows me away. And my family loves like going to theater events. We go to Theater at the Mount a lot, and every year at the high school, I'm like, it just blows me away that these high school kids can perform like this, and I think they're better than the college kids, honestly. So it's just really, really amazing group. So
Thank you.
Send that back. Give everyone a shout out. We were just
I will. Yeah, we appreciate you. It was a really fun thing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, June. Lisa?
Charlie, I also have to give you a shout out because you did an excellent job. You were excellent in the play, and the group performed really well. I also have to give a shout out to the cancer awareness event that happened at at the high school. It was awesome. It was well attended, and the sports teams represented as well. I even had people come up from Lunenburg, which was participating, and thanked us for having the event. So it was great. So I like the participation of everyone. It was a great weekend at NM.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Mr. Carney?
Yeah, just good luck on those tests this week. I know they're tough, but you guys are well prepared and you're going to do your best, and we all believe in you and we're proud of you. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Charlie, thank you very much. I appreciate you joining, especially on a testing eve. So
Thanks, Charlie. Good luck
good
tomorrow.
luck tomorrow.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you. All right. Superintendent Morgan, for your report, sir.
My report's in the budget.
All right.
So.
Okay. So moving on to old business, we had the petition for the reinstatement of middle school foreign language that we've, I think, talked about our last couple of meetings. There's been some discussion back and forth with the town clerks, with legal counsel, and there's, the long story short, a petition of this nature, there's no requirement that we certify signatures. It's not a requirement. And what I would propose at this point, there's 621 signatures that were presented, and that represents almost 7.00 exactly percentage of the registered voters. So I think even if there's a handful that ended up not being certified, I don't think it would change the weight or the significance of the petition or cause us to take a separate action. So I'd ask that the committee move to vote to accept the petition for the reinstatement of middle school foreign language as valid without certification of signatures.
So moved.
Ooh, second.
All right. Any discussions on that? Questions, concerns? All right. Seeing none, we'll go down the list. So Dave?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
June?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. So that is unanimous. Thank you. All right. Next up is the FY. Randy, do you have a question?
Yeah, so we've accepted the petition, and the last time we had asked the administration to come back with a full explanation of how the program is working this year, which we got. Where do we go from here as far as the committee, as far as getting back to the people of the petition? I think we should have some sort of resolution, at least in part, on where we're going with this.
I don't have it in front of me, but I believe we said that we would be getting back to everyone next spring. I believe it's next spring. Once we have a little bit, more of a group that has taken the foreign language class, the online version, and then coming back to the committee after finding out how it went, how it looks, and is it something that we want to continue with? Because obviously, again, we're going to continue to have those challenges. We're going to have challenges just hiring teachers this year, never mind foreign language teachers. There's going to be a lot of competition out there. So I do think that it's something that we need to explore. Look at the benefits of potentially providing students with an online class, which most kids, probably all kids, will have to take at some point in time if they are college bound. And then also look to see what other languages students can take through this program to see if it's something that takes off or not. And then obviously look at whether or not it outweighs the value of the former middle school program. But it would entail likely some sort of a schedule change if that were to happen, because STEM has essentially gone in and has replaced it.
Have we gotten back to the original petitioners who brought this forward to us with the plan? Or should the chair or should the administration get back to them just to kind of close the loop on that?
I'm not sure if Nancy communicated something out to them or not. I know that when we discussed it, the creators of the petition, just as far as an overall plan, were at the last meeting when we discussed, again, whether it be next spring or the spring after. I do not recall. I have it in my office as far as the time, but we can certainly put something together more formal if the committee would like that.
Yeah, I think we need to, going back to the communication piece, to just be a little deliberate in terms of what are those milestones, both from a outward communication perspective, but also like how are we measuring the program? And I don't mean how are we determining if it's successful, but what are those measures that say that would allow us to say that this is more or less successful, or preparing kids more or less than in-person Spanish or in-person foreign language. Just so it's very clear, and we're not waiting 2 springs from now to say, oh, well, this wasn't a success. Now what do we do? Now what do we do?
Okay.
Because I think that'll be important. I think it's about the outcomes, right? I mean, if whatever, if it's online, in person, hybrid, you'd have them go buy a book at a bookstore, like whatever the method is. If that's able to prepare the kids for where they need to be to get to the level they need to be at for high school foreign language, is that success? Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but I think we need to define that.
Sure.
And be clear with the petitioners that, hey, here's the plan, here's how we're going to measure it, and we'll communicate updates, whatever, once a quarter, twice a year, whatever it happens to be. Because I think enrollment numbers are going to be important to that as well. If we get 10 kids to sign up, is that success, even if they all get straight A's?
Right.
Or is it success if we get 50 kids to sign up and half of them get straight A's and half of them struggle with a C? Is that still success of the program? I don't know. But I think that has to be weighed in there, because I know some of the folks were concerned about just exposure to foreign language, not necessarily being ready to take a advanced high school Spanish class.
Sure. Okay. I can discuss that with Nancy.
Okay. Anything else on the foreign language piece? All right. On to the budget. Superintendent.
Sure. So, thank you. So again, as far as the district goes, I do feel we have tried to be as transparent and responsive as possible. This budget has, for all intents and purposes, been shared as far back as November initially. We had our first budget summit in October. We had one in November, December, and January. And it is very, very difficult to put together a budget without knowing what the member districts need and what their needs are, and what their budget looks like. In past years, we've had a pretty good idea as to what the member towns' budgets were looking like and what they needed. This year, we received one budget from the 3 towns, and we received that budget in early April. So it's, again, very, very difficult to know what the towns are looking for. That being said, we do know that our first town meeting coming up, Townsend, on tomorrow evening, actually, is struggling. And that the current 2.88% increase is going to be a struggle to get past. So central office met last week, and we did try to come up with a plan, and we do have a proposal this evening that would essentially take our 2.88% budget increase and decrease it by $300,000, which would then make it a 2.37% increase, which is the lowest budget increase proposal that I have seen in recent years. And again, the goal going into this is to try to keep it close to 3 for the school district, because it is a challenge to keep up with all the mandates that we have, to keep up with the challenging curriculum, to hire a talented staff. It's a very, very difficult thing to do, especially when we have, things that are beyond our control, such as transportation and healthcare, that far exceed 2.37% or 2.88% or 3% for that matter. So again, what we're looking to do is we're asking the school committee to consider a revote on our budget to take us from what the original was in March of a 2.88% increase down to a 2.37% increase. And we've arrived at that by reducing the district-wide elementary school teacher that we had in almost as a contingency should class size get to be too high. It does look as though we are going to have a contingency teacher regardless, just because of the way Ashby is shaking out, looking right now like they're going to go from 7 classrooms to 6 due to class size. Reducing the ask of the 2.0 adjustment counselors to 1.0 with the plan of making it a 2.0 the following year. So hire half of that position of those, but hire half of the FTEs this year, a 0.5 at Spalding and a 0.5 at Varnum Brook for FY23, and then in FY24 propose that they become 1.0. So do half of it this year, half of it next year. That would give us some savings, reduce the additional technology technician And then we have some additional monies that's probably best explained by Nancy Haynes that would, again, get us down to a 2.37% increase over FY22 and a $300,000 savings. I do think it's going to get Townsend to a better spot to hopefully get them in a situation where they can support the budget. But right now, the assessments are for Pepperell at 2.37. The assessments would be 2.44% for Pepperell, 2.66% for Townsend, and Ashby would still be very high at 10.16% because of the shift in students. So I am recommending that the school committee support this and that we revote on the FY23 budget this evening in time for tomorrow night's first town meeting in Townsend. And then we have Ashby coming up Saturday and Pepperell on Monday.
Randy, do you have your hand up? Or is that?
I think it was from before, but I actually was about to put it up when I noticed.
Oh, there you go. Take it away.
First, I'd like to commend the administration for looking at this and finding things. I think it's just been a very difficult time for a lot of towns and a lot of organizations. The only concern I have for this year is the school adjustment counselor. We're dealing with an awful lot. If you look at the national news across the US, across the world, these students, especially the youngest ones, are having the hardest time with coming off a remote and everything else that's been happening. I worry that putting off that extra full-time position, whether it's half and half between Varnum Brook and Spalding, is not good for the students. Whereas all the other cuts, I can see us struggling and trying to fit it in and making do without the technology technician. We can figure that out if there isn't a direct effect on the students. Whereas the adjustment counselor, if we don't have enough adjustment counselors for these students to help them through these difficult times, it's going to directly affect their learning. And this is a position that we typically have put off in past years and kicked down the line for many, many years. We've cut these positions. It's very difficult to get back once we don't put it in the budget. I'd be in favor for everything else except for that position.
Thank you, Randy. Tom?
Yeah, I'm with Randy. I was actually really excited when I saw the two ads for the adjustment counselors, and so just looking at that and just knowing what schools are dealing with right now, it was something that I was super excited about. For the position, so we're reducing it to 0.5. Are you anticipating hiring somebody as a 1.0 and splitting time, or hiring 2.5s?
It would be one person,
Okay.
split between the buildings. Now again, if this is something, and I agree, we actually got our first report from Care Solace, the new program that we are using, and it is being used at a pretty high rate. I want to say we've had 500 inquiries in the first month, and I can provide the committee with that information, and that does provide support for students and parents. That being said, there's certainly a workaround into keeping those two positions, and that would be making sure that we stay within budget for any new positions that we are hiring. So I guess what I'm saying is that I'm still confident that we can make this reduction, even if it meant maintaining the two school adjustment counselors. But we would have to be very cautious on hiring.
So just for new positions, you wouldn't go over, a master's plus whatever.
we
or
would, we
years
would just,
experience or whatever.
well, we would have to be very cautious. And again, we would potentially have to look at shifting money from some of the other funds that are.
Did he freeze for everyone, or is that just a me thing? Okay.
Any other comments from anybody before we see if he can come back in? Oh, there we go.
If I can just share, I went to the Townsend FinCom meeting earlier this evening and attended that, as well as took a look at the Townsend budget, talking with Ross Perry. They have their deficit down to, I think it was 50,000 and something and change, is where they're at this moment. So this reduction more than helps Townsend with their budget issues. I was going to make a suggestion this evening that we take a formal vote that any additional money that we receive from the state through the Senate or anywhere else, that we for this year pledge that will go towards town assessments versus raising our budget or putting it into our E&D. It's typically our what we do anyway, but you know, if we have a formal vote this year so that towns can be confident that we're going to do that, I think that would be good. I'll let Brad, I see him back, if he can finish what he was saying before about the budget.
Sure. So can someone tell me where I left off? Because it looked like everyone else froze and I was still talking. So I don't know what you heard and what you did not hear.
So last you had just mentioned, just being cautious about hiring practices moving forward.
Yeah. So again, it is doable. We just have to be. We certainly have to be careful. That's all. There are certainly ways in which we can be cautious. Certainly with the hiring piece to make sure that we maintain both positions. I guess one of the pieces, one of the reasons I was proposing it was to be fully transparent with the towns now, in that we're asking for one this year, but we're going to tell you now we're going to need the two for FY24. So we're going to reduce it this year, but we're going to ask for the two positions in FY24, just to do it partially for this year. But we can certainly do our very best to make it happen, maintaining both positions and just making sure that we're certainly cautious with any vacancies that we have in the district and how we go about hiring. And we generally are anyway. But we would have to be cautious this year to make sure that we're coming in at that number. Nancy, do you have any initial concerns with that thought process? You're muted.
Sorry, it's terrible. We may end up with some retirees that we don't know about right now. I think I heard there was potentially one. So those types of things obviously affect the ability to maybe fit something else in the budget. But I mean, we could keep everyone updated. as we go through the process, this, as the hires are made and as we get settled positions and that type of thing.
I guess the other piece of this is that, again, I would still ask the committee to support the $300,000 reduction, the 2.37% increase, but also realize that we may not be able to find 2 school adjustment counselors. It's a different license than a guidance counselor. And there are far more guidance counselors out there than there are school adjustment counselors. So it can be a difficult position to fill. And it's not something that we just want to fill just to fill it. We want to make sure that we have competent people in those roles so that they're actually going to provide the best possible service to our students as possible. So I guess, again, bottom line is that I'm still confident that we can get to the 237, reduce the $300,000 and maintain both of those positions, provided we're careful elsewhere. And I'll be meeting with the admin team on Wednesday anyway. So that would be the plan, is that we would have to be cautious from a budget standpoint on all new hires.
Lisa?
If the budget does not go through, severe cuts, is that what we're looking at? Or
if the budget does not go through, yes, we'd be potentially looking at some significant cuts. What that looks like, I honestly don't know. But it would likely be there would likely be cuts. The other piece is the other component of this, which is why we're certainly pushing to make this happen in advance of tomorrow evening, is it is really holding up our ability to post for jobs. Because if we do have to cut, we don't want to start interviewing and offering people jobs and offering them contracts if we have to actually reduce. Because if we're going to reduce, it's likely going to be in areas where there are vacancies. And that's not something, again, not something that I want to do. I'd like to think a 237 would get us through. Our class sizes are getting to a point where they are high. And I'd like to see them not go any higher, especially at the elementary level, especially in some of the grade levels. We're right around 25 to 27. It's several grade levels at a couple of our schools. So we want to be cautious of that. So confident we can get there. Just would like your support in the budget so that we can potentially present some good news to Townsend tomorrow evening.
Ray, did you have something else?
Yeah, I can support the 300,000, but I would really like to take that adjustment counselor off of the table and find it other places. If you
Okay, I can do that. I will do that.
I guess for me, not to belabor this point, but with this reduction, the overall assessment for Townsend, which includes the debt assessment, is going up 1.29%. Pepperell's is 0.58%, and Ashby, unfortunately, is still 9.35. I have issues when other areas of the town's budgets continue to go up well above 2.5%, and they're still balking at the school district for coming in at what is now less than 1.3. And I've yet to get answers from certain people within Townsend anyway, and I've asked the question in Ashby. Still, I don't get answer. I don't get anything. So that continues to be a bothersome sticking point for me. I want to do what we can to help the towns, but not at the expense of the services that our students need in this district. So that continues to be my concern. Jessica?
Watching that meeting of the mock town meeting a week or so ago that's on YouTube now, I think that people are just going to blame the school no matter what we do, no matter how much we go up or we don't go up. I think that they've still got this mentality that it's the school and the school is always asking for money. And so I don't know. I still think it's an uphill battle for tomorrow night, honestly, in my opinion.
I think part of that's, and I've worked through this in Pepperell to some extent, but I know I've seen it with some of the conversations in Townsend, is that they see this as part of their budget, and it's not. Like, yeah, we're all going after the same taxpayer dollars, but we need to work together to go after those same taxpayer dollars.
I mean, I guess the problem is that if the budget doesn't pass, I would say it's very likely we're going to be looking at class sizes of 30.
Well, the budget can still go up. That's the risk that towns take.
Right.
And I think if they didn't pass it, I would push very hard for them to explain why you support a town budget going up at whatever it's at now. I don't have Townsend's latest numbers, but it was 5% as of last week. Why you're supporting that, but you're not supporting a school budget going up 1.3 when everything costs more money. Toilet paper costs more money than it did a year ago. Hand soap, waxing the floor. I mean, everything costs more.
Everything.
So, like, tell me your grocery bill hasn't gone up by more than 1%. And you're asking a school district to contain its cost that much?
I do believe with all the cuts that they've made, Townsend got their budget down below 2.5%.
Okay, well then there should be no problem with a 1.3 school.
Right. FinCom did not have any issues that I heard as far as the school committee assessment. The Board of Selectmen was not recommending the school assessment, but that was before they cut the budget down to the only having $55,000 or $50,000 that they had to cover. That wasn't in balance. That at that point it was 352 or more. I forget the exact amount. And with that amount, they weren't supporting it. I would hope that they would support it between their cuts and anything that we do here.
Hope so. Thank you, Randy. June?
So I know there's a lot of focus on whether Townsend is going to support the budget or not, but I know some of you know, but I don't know if everybody knows, but Ashby had opted to put a lower number into their budget line by about almost $318,000 less than what the school budget is currently. So unless somebody makes a motion to change that during town meeting, then the school budget as we have it would not be approved. I don't know if you want to do any public comment, but our town administrator is on the call right now, so she may be able to further elaborate that, but I do think it may end up posing an issue. So it kind of, you know, if Ashby does not vote the full amount, then it's really kind of hinging on whether Townsend will or will not be.
So they, just for clarity for the rest of the committee, they changed the warrant that we'd submitted on their own?
The select board voted to do that during the meeting.
Do they have the authority to do that?
Yeah. Is that legal?
It is. It's non-binding. Just because they vote in a number doesn't mean that we are bound by what they have put in. We can still request the same amount that we are requesting from them. If Townsend and Pepperell support the budget as is, then it doesn't really make a difference what Ashby votes. They could vote, you know, 0. They can vote $3, or they can vote the lower number that they have on their warrant, and it would not apply. It's the same way it's always been every year. 2 of the 3 towns vote the budget, the third town has to accept it. It's just the way it is. It's the way that everything works. But they are certainly in their right to vote in a lower number. I believe what would happen is if Townsend does not pass it, Ashby passes a lower number, that's essentially saying a no to the assessment we have. If we come back with another vote for a reduced budget, there's a possibility that we might meet whatever number Ashby originally voted. But again, it's non-binding.
So how does that work on the floor of town meeting? Like when we, I guess, present our motion for our assessment, do we just say the correct number?
Don't know. I'm not sure I've ever been in a town meeting when we've done this. And we don't always present either. Because the education assessment, if I remember correctly, is part of the budget. And the town kind of goes through it, at least in Townsend. It's just another line in their budget. We don't have a warrant article for it.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be. It's its own thing. We assess directly, which has been my whole heartburn with this process. Is it's not a line item in the town budget. Ms. Haynes, you have your hand up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say that not all the towns voted the same way. Pepperell does it in sections like, general government, police, fire, safety, education. The town of Ashby, I believe, votes the bottom line. And people can make motion to make changes to that, but they usually do it as one vote. Townsend, I think, does it in sections also. Oh, I guess just as far as the comment, if we get two towns that don't approve the budget, the school committee has 30 days to re-look at the budget. They need to make a change to it, whether it's significant change or minor change. And then they would re-adopt a budget, and the towns would then have 45 days to respond. So they'll be going back to town meeting, which I know kind of is not ideal, but that's how it works. And it would, our school committee would likely adopt that before June 30 so that we can utilize the E&D that's certified for next year's budget. But that's just a procedural thing. So I don't know how that's going to look for the towns. I'm sure they're not, I don't know if they maybe don't know that they have to go back that quickly. But that could happen.
And how much does the town meeting cost? Does anybody know? All right, Lisa.
If one of the towns does approve it, the way it is, do they have to recall a town meeting? Or conduct another town meeting?
I don't believe they do.
Okay.
They've already met the assessment. And what could happen is they would approve a higher number than what our final number is, as an example. And then they would be able to say move money later at a special town meeting or something, but they would have approved the budget number at least and be slightly over potentially.
All right, anybody else with any questions or comments?
I guess a motion. I will move that. I'm sorry, I'm looking for that.
Randy, I have the numbers. I have the numbers.
Great. Okay.
I move that we approve the a budget for the FY23 operating budget of $53,206,621. Did I get that number right? Is someone checking? Nancy? A transportation budget of $3,982,859 and a debt service of $3,940,472, using E&D of $2,645,000.
And Lacey, you got it right. The operating is $53,261,622.
I got that one right. Did I say it right? Okay.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Any last questions, comments? So again, this represents a $300,000 decrease, bringing the overall change from FY22 to 2.37%. Nancy?
Yes, so the other change in this budget is that we are using the Chapter 70 numbers that the House just came out with and they reduced the amount of charter school reimbursement, but they also reduced the assessments. So the assessments changed slightly, and we're using the not the state budget yet, but the House version of it, which was an increase for us. The original budget had only a $30 per student increase in Chapter 70, and this is a $60 per student increase. So I'll try not to spend it all in one place, but you know, that every little bit helps, I suppose. So it moves on to the Senate now. The Senate will review it and decide, you know, what those numbers will look like. So we're hedging our bets that those will come in as we plan. Hopefully there won't be any major changes from that, but we won't probably know the answer to that till July or so.
Excellent, thank you, Nancy. All right, any other questions or comments before we vote? All right, Dave?
Yes. Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
June?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And I guess I will vote yes. So that passes.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
I would like to also just make a motion that the school committee commit for the FY23 budget any additional revenues we receive that are not in our current budget from this, or any current revenues that we don't have in our budget currently, that we put towards town assessments for next year.
I will second.
All right, any questions or comments on that?
What would that do to, I don't know, excess and deficiency? Like, what would that do overall to our budget, I guess?
It shouldn't do anything more than what we have just voted. It's just if the Senate votes in higher amounts that we don't have in our budget right now, then that just simply goes to town assessments. We don't increase our budget by that amount. That money coming in just goes to town assessment and reducing those.
You will have to readopt the budget again to take advantage of those revenue sources.
I'm just, I'm worried about these class sizes. I'm worried about these numbers, and you know, it seems like every year we're kind of eking by, and it's getting, you know, these class sizes are getting bigger and bigger every single year. A class size of 27, class size 30 is really bad for kids. You know, we can talk about remote learning, but when kids are in class and there's one kid, or there's one educator for 28, 30 kids, that's not a quality education either. and I understand the town budgets are really tight, but I'm worried about scraping every last thing we can possibly get off of the budget. Yeah, I'm really worried about that. I'm barely in support of this budget right now with where class sizes are at.
Anybody else, questions or comments? My only concern, and Nancy, I think we were at, we're about what was our unanticipated revenues this past year that went into E&D? Was it about $1 million in that range, or?
I think it was in that range.
Okay, so I guess I worry if we have that much, again, on unanticipated revenue this year, then that
Well,
doesn't go back to E&D, right? Is that what we're saying?
I think it depends on how it comes in. Some of that is if it were school choice as an example. I mean, you'll have to decide this, the committee, it'll all have to come back to the committee anyway. So I guess you could, your issue, I think, will be that if the towns have already set their tax rate, reducing it doesn't really, all it does is give them back, they've already figured out a way to set their tax rate and balance their budget by, December. If it comes in after December, it's a little harder for them to utilize it. It would probably be a reduction in the third and fourth quarter payments. And then it would be in free cash. And again, they can't really utilize it until they have a town meeting that way either. So I guess it's the kind of thing that you'd want to come back to. You'd come back to the committee, look at what the revenues are. And again, I think the intention is that if the state revenues come in more, so chapter 70, chapter 71, if we have more interest income that comes in, we're not balancing our actual revenues to reset assessments mid-year, especially past December. But if we know something happened in the fall, we'll be able to make the change and vote a new budget, and then the towns would have the option of approving that budget. If that makes sense.
No, that makes sense for me. Thank you.
So I can certainly amend my motion that any additional state revenue that comes in before the October 1 date. I believe that's when we usually recertify, Nancy, is when we have October 1 numbers.
Yeah, I mean, in order for them to be able to, well, I guess if it's a lower number, they don't need to re-vote. So if they've already approved a budget at that point,
And we can't go up higher.
Usually try to do it ahead of the town meetings if there's a fall town meeting. So I don't know what those dates are right now, but
Okay.
that way they can utilize the funds for setting their tax rate. If you don't do it before then, they really can't.
Okay.
I think they need it. But maybe not. If they're fine to just have it go into their free cash and they are not setting their tax rate with it, it probably doesn't matter when it is.
Then here's the modification I'll make is I will modify the motion to any new revenue from the state from the Senate's approved budget that's not currently in our budget now. We will put towards reducing assessments. So this way, we have an end date when the state sets their budget.
Or the final adopted state budget. If there's any change, we'll reuse it. And what could happen is it could be a small amount, which is kind of frustrating because it doesn't really help anything and requires us re-adopt the budget, reissue all the letters. And then there's very little change at all. That's typically what's happened. Last year was the first year that we did re-adopt it. I think we did that in the fall for the transportation increase. But often it's not that. Often, sometimes that state budget goes up, but other things that they're charging us for go up also. So it's as long as you're looking at the whole picture. So like in this case, the state, this most recent budget from the House, the Chapter 70 numbers went up. The charter school went down significantly. And the assessments to the towns went down. But often they can just reverse. So Senate might come back and say, no, we're going to have more charged in the state assessments. We're going to give them less Chapter 70 or give them more. So they go back and forth with these numbers.
So obviously this is a much more complicated motion than I thought it would be.
I think
I understand it's not your fault.
I think you could, you're fine to say based on the state budget process, if those numbers change, the school committee will revisit it. That way you can look at all the changes and when the final budget comes through. Usually it's July, around July, mid-July. So maybe at the July meeting, we would have an update, potential revote if there was any new revenue to take advantage of at that point.
Okay, we'll make this simple. Craig, my new motion will be that the school committee will pledge to look at the budget for any potential reduction in town assessments after the state certifies their budget.
I'll second.
All right.
That sound reasonable to everybody?
School committee will pledge to look at the budget for any potential town assessment reductions after receiving the state certified budget. Is that close?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that one? All right, seeing none. Dave,
No.
Jess,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I will vote yes, so that passes. Thank you. All right, anything else on the budget? Okay, subcommittee reports. Lisa, anything from accelerated repair?
We're getting closer.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel?
Maybe soon. Nancy says yes, soon.
Better not be a light shining through the new roofs we've got, so hopefully it's a light at the end of the tunnel.
I hope not that kind of light. We don't want that coming down.
Good. We talked about building committee earlier. Finance, Lisa? Anything else?
No, we've discussed enough tonight about finance.
Perfect. No, negotiations, Tom?
Nope.
Perfect. Randy, policy?
This just one policy for a first reading. I do apologize to the subcommittee members. This is slightly different than what we had voted. I had gotten back with Catherine on this one, who had brought it to us in the first place to look at the changes. And I had misunderstood something that changes she was talking about, that MASC had something that we needed in here. So I changed this to the MASC version, which took out the really controversial stuff from our policy, added in the comment that we added in during our school committee or our subcommittee meeting. And this is the one that's being presented for first reading, which is JLCD, administering medicines to students. So I move that we approve JLCD, administering medicines to students for first reading.
Second.
Right. Thank you, June. Any questions on this one? All right, seeing none. Dave?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
June?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Any other business not reasonably anticipated in the last 48 hours?
No.
All right. Dave, do you have something?
Yeah, so it is, as our student representative mentioned, it is Teacher Appreciation Week, and I would just really like to thank all of the North Middlesex teachers for all that they've done the last, not just this last school year, but the last few school years. They've really put in a tremendous effort, and their work should be recognized.
100%. Thank you, Dave. Just one item for our upcoming agenda. I would like to, just as a committee, revisit our school committee norms and operating protocols so we can run through those in our next meeting. But if folks get a chance beforehand, just take a look, make sure they're still relevant, resonate, make sense. If anybody wants any changes or anything made to those, we admittedly have not been doing a great job kind of reviewing those on a regular basis, but hopefully they do kind of serve as the foundation for how we operate and conduct our business. So if people could take a look at that, that would be great. And then the other plug is, I believe all of us on the committee and obviously those in the community are welcome as well, that Nissitissit is doing a performance of Willy Wonka Jr. on May 5th is their opening night, and they've got some in-school performances on the 6th with a final performance the evening of May 6th. So that is coming up later this week. Maybe it'll give Beauty and the Beast of the high school a run for its money. So I encourage folks to get out and check that show out as well. All right, anything else before a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you,
I'll
Lisa.
second.
Perfect. All right, Dave,
Yes.
Jess,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I will vote yes, so we're adjourned.